In a future where humanity has begun its quest to conquer the cosmos, 70% of the population has left Earth behind. Meet Haruto, our protagonist, who finds himself reluctantly roped into a pie-eating contest to claim the schoolyard, only to face the bitter sting of defeat and mockery. During class, boredom sets in, and Haruto, along with a few friends, creates a chat group to pass the time. News breaks that the feline military is poised to invade their neutral territory, but as students, they brush it off, too caught up in their youthful distractions. One friend urges Haruto to confess his feelings to Soko, the girl he secretly admires. Soko catches him, stealing glances, and confronts him playfully. In a moment of panic, Soko snatches Haruto's phone, forcing him to fabricate a story about new students transferring in, only to suspect they might be spies sent to gather intel. As fate would have it, these spies spot Haruto and Soko while they fetch a broom to clean up. The white-haired antagonist overhears Haruto's dream of creating a carefree world, and enraged rushes over to declare that only those who strive earnestly deserve respect. He dismisses half-hearted efforts as mere refuse. Inspired by this confrontation, Haruto resolves to confess his feelings to Soko while helping clean the shrine. Meanwhile, the spies infiltrate the most classified area of the school, reporting back to their base, which triggers an immediate military response. Just as Haruto gathers the courage to confess, the ground trembles beneath them. A drone zips overhead, but no one thinks much of it. After all, their nation hasn't faced war in ages, and the idea of danger feels foreign. The military mobilizes quickly, yet they are ill-prepared, forcing students to prioritize escape. Researchers working on a special robot scramble as the spies launch a surprise attack. In the chaos, Soko attempts to save someone, but is caught in a rocket blast, leaving Haruto in a state of shock, unable to process the devastating reality. His friends urge him to confront the truth. Soko is gone. Fueled by rage towards the enemy, Haruto climbs into the advanced robot meant for combat. Despite his lack of training, he envisions revenge, but the enemy quickly takes notice, targeting him as he struggles to activate the machine. As relentless fire rains down, the robot teeters on the edge of destruction, yet spurred on by the words of his white-haired rival and Soko's encouragement to give his all. He takes the plunge and synchronizes with the robot. In an awe-inspiring display, Haruto soars into battle single-handedly, dismantling waves of enemy robots despite facing seasoned soldiers. The enemy commander, frustrated with his incompetent troops, charges into the fray, only to be utterly overwhelmed by Haruto's unprecedented power and speed. With just a few strikes, Haruto shatters the commander's robot, sending him crashing back to the ground. News of Haruto's heroics spreads like wildfire, transforming him into a national hero overnight. Students across the school are astonished that a mere high schooler could pilot the nation's secret weapon. Friend requests flood in, reaching the hundreds of thousands. Yet despite the adulation, Haruto's heart aches in sorrow, for Soko is no longer here to celebrate his triumph. That night he encounters the white-haired rival once more, who smugly suggests that if he enjoys success, he should wear a smile after all. He was right about the futility of half-hearted efforts. But he stepped forward, revealing his identity as a spy, and plunged a dagger straight into Haruto's heart to ensure his victory. He fired 2 more shots, convinced he had once again bested Haruto. Just as he prepared to enter the robot, Haruto, with 2 crimson stripes marking his face, suddenly surged back to life, biting into his neck. His friends rushed over, realizing that despite his injuries, Haruto's heartbeat still pulsed with life. But as the spies approached to seize the robot, a young man with white hair awakened and retaliated with gunfire. He shot directly into the captain's eye, guiding his friends to safety. As they descended, he declared he was indeed Haruto. Though he didn't fully understand how he ended up in this body, he was undeniably Haruto. Meanwhile, the enemy forces of the 6th faction had completely taken control of the neutral faction's territory. The government had surrendered unconditionally, allowing the 6th faction to claim this land as their own. Haruto had proven himself to be the true Haruto. However, his combat skills belonged to this body, and he was merely acting on instinct. He yearned to return to the robot, to wipe out the enemy forces, and exact his revenge. The sixth faction had heard rumors of the betrayal by the body. Haruto inhabited marked as Io, while the one he shot bore the mark of A. Just as the enemy learned of L's betrayal, Haruto, still in that body, confronted them and unleashed a torrent of gunfire to reclaim the robot. His friends used a helicopter they had seized to bring him close to the robot, where he leapt down. He drove off the researchers present and reclaimed his old body. Inside, he and his friend devised a hypothesis and decided to test it. She bound Haruto's hands and feet, allowing him to bite into his former body. Haruto returned to his original self while Io regained his body. Albeit tied up, Haruto activated the robot, gearing up to wreak havoc. He flew towards the enemy ship and began his assault, but the enemies tilted the ship, attempting to throw him into the sea. Confused, he struggled to control the robot, and Io recognized him as a novice. He plummeted straight into an underwater space station and out into the cosmos. As he emerged into space, he found himself disoriented, lacking a stable foothold. The enemy had gathered outside and quickly opened fire on Haruto. After a brief struggle, he and his friend managed to activate the robot's acceleration abilities, charging forward to slice through the familiar soldiers. But the enemy had grown serious, deploying their most powerful weapons. Io managed to free himself and demanded Haruto surrender. The enemy unleashed a barrage from their advanced weaponry. Io, observing the assault, recognized that the pilot on the other side was A. This individual still bore a grudge, believing Io had betrayed him and had lost an eye in the process. Io, confused, requested Haruto to signal surrender, but A had no intention of giving them a chance, targeting another combatant named Kui, forcing Haruto into a 2-on-1 confrontation. Just then, he received a call from Soko, who was still alive but trapped underground. As he prepared to fly back, he was struck by bullets that disabled his engines. Io was unaware of the events that transpired while he was unconscious, yet he was even more baffled by why Haruto was still alive. Despite his tattered clothing, his wounds had miraculously healed. Realizing he couldn't return home, he decided to help Haruto to ensure their survival. He instructed Haruto to wait until the energy levels exceeded the threshold. The robot was overheating, but Haruto seized a sword and plunged it into the core, enhancing the blade, and delivered a devastating blow to A. The enemy's robot sustained severe damage. With the third faction now entering the fray, they were forced to retreat for their safety. Io wanted to understand what had happened, and why, despite killing Haruto, he still lived. But even he didn't know how to respond to that. Now back on the ground, Io was taken away for questioning. He reunited with Soko and intended to continue their unfinished business. But he hesitated, finding her outfit outdated, and using that as an excuse to leave. When his friend chased after him, questioning his decision, Haruto insisted it was for the best, believing he had become a monster, and that this was the only way to keep Soko safe. The film then reveals a future where 70% of humanity has moved to live in space, dividing the world into 3 factions. The first faction is the Dosian military, emphasizing armed strength, while their opposition is Azur, a nation that has grown strong through trade agreements. The third faction is a shadow of these 2 superpowers, the neutral Dior, once a peaceful land until Dosian's attack unleashed chaos. Returning to the present, Io was taken for interrogation, and upon discovering his identity, the investigators appeared more concerned. Io had given Haruto some clues before being led away. All the students were subsequently taken by the Asuka military to a concentration area equipped with technology for temporary habitation. Haruto arrived to find himself immediately noticed by many. Thanks to him, they had endured until now. Meanwhile, the investigators revealed that many years ago, Io had single-handedly faced an army of thousands, so they could hardly believe someone so young possessed such high-level skills and capabilities. While AI enjoyed comfortable lives gaining direct access to military weapons, Soko seemed distressed over her issues with Haruto. At this moment, Haruto was being examined by 3 friends, finding no abnormalities. Yet his wounds healed instantly. He planned to go to the hospital, but doing so would only turn him into a lab rat. Suddenly, he was overtaken by instinct, launching an attack on his close friend, forcing them to defend themselves. He feared he had become a monster when suddenly a girl approached him, stating Senator Figaro wanted to meet him. Upon meeting Figaro, he was informed that he had become a worldwide sensation with AI, eagerly anticipating his safety. He wrote a commentary to inform the world that he was still alive and receiving assistance from the A military. The entire world reacted immediately with AI celebrating his survival. The world now recognized him as the hero who single-handedly faced the Dosian army and returned safely. Even celebrities sought to befriend him. Figaro wanted him to assist in the effort to save the people's lives because in his eyes, whether fleeing or fighting both were seen as victories. One truly loses only when they lose their life, so there's no shame in retreating. The remaining students were called for evacuation, notably the pink-haired hacker girl. As Haruto made the announcement, he realized the loudspeaker was part of the hints Elle had mentioned. As he began to break free, the military finally discovered his escape. He's known as the one-man army, an unstoppable force that renders even 200 fully equipped soldiers powerless. His talent is extraordinary, but there's an ominous shadow lurking Haruto. At this moment, he's in the academy searching for any remaining AI, calling out for the last trace of them. Soko senses a presence in the academy, but it's not. Haruto, driven by curiosity, she rushes to investigate. Meanwhile, the Asuka army is determined to stick to their plan, disregarding Elle's wandering in the shadows, and has begun to launch their ship. Haruto, still on his mission, encounters a young man named Zama. Zama, filled with vengeance, seeks to steal a robot from Haruto, setting the stage for a confrontation. As Soko returns to the academy, she stumbles upon the hiding place of a hacker girl. Just as the ship outside is ready to evacuate the students, a sudden disruption causes chaos, reminiscent of the second clue given to the students. Meanwhile, Elle had fashioned a screw from a chair to break the lamp, using the shards to cut his bindings and steal a gun to escape Fedor. Sian prepared his group to strike, aiming to seize the robot under Haruto's control. If possible, they intended to capture Io for interrogation. Haruto, alongside the military, announced the evacuation for the students to board a ship to safety. With Haruto by his side, Elle believes he can accomplish this monumental task 5 years ahead of schedule. In return, Elle promises to help Haruto save both the academy and the girl he holds dear. Soko eventually finds the hacker girl, only to discover she's cripplingly introverted, afraid to interact with AI. When Soko approaches the girl, panics, urging her not to reveal this place to the AI. As for the disruption, it's revealed that if Haruto wants to protect the AI, his hands must be stained with blood. Suddenly, he spots his robot being drawn toward Figaro, realizing he must forge a pact with him to continue down this path. Haruto feels the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Zama believes he can predict the future like a prophet, leaving Haruto to ponder whether to trust him. He promises to help Haruto save himself, but Haruto dismisses this as nonsense and runs away. He rushes to find Figaro, only to see him allowing someone else to test drive his robot. Haruto warns them, but his pleas fall on deaf ears, leading to a catastrophic self-destruction. The enemy's warship attacks, and Figaro decides to abandon the students to find another escape route. Soko, still with the hacker, inadvertently overhears this plan. Realizing she's been played, Haruto fights back. He bites a soldier's hand to escape, but only succeeds in scratching the surface and gets captured. Soko tries to warn everyone about what she heard, but no one believes her due to the lack of evidence. Unable to speak about the hacker girl, she decides to take drastic measures to make them listen. Meanwhile, the group heads toward the area where Figaro is hoarding troops, creating distractions for the soldiers. Soko's friends sneak through the ventilation system and find Haruto's prison. They untie him and rush outside to inform him that Figaro has plans to abandon them. Zama steps in to block a vehicle, but is met with Figaro's wrath and a warning shot. Haruto's robot has also been taken, leading him to chase after it. As soldiers block his path, he knocks one down, biting and commandeering him to pursue the remaining threat. He reclaimed the robot and forced the Asura army to lower their weapons. El stood up to inform them that the Dosian army had surrounded this place, and sooner or later both they and their families would be in danger. El signaled Haruto to gain his trust, but Soko had a plan to resolve the situation. She boldly declared that they would stand against any AI that was considered an enemy. She proposed a threat: if they harmed the people of Dior, they would hand the robot over to Asus for research, and Asus would have no choice but to ally with them. Otherwise, they would give the robot to Dosian for study. With this approach, if either side broke the agreement, the opposing faction would gain a massive military advantage. The AIs all saw this as a brilliant idea. Haruto then ventured outside to fight, severing the connections between this city and the world, pushing it away. Soko announced that they would create an independent nation, free from the influence of any superpower. They would develop to stand shoulder to shoulder with the world's mighty. Those who were curious about Soko's identity learned that she was the daughter of the president of Dior, which made Haruto feel intrigued, as it had been a long time since he had a reason to smile like this. After separating from the world, both the ship and the city underwent a complete transformation. With no adults around, this place became a paradise for high school students. They indulged in it in fun, but also remembered to tidy up everything to resemble a proper city. As elections approached the Azut, government sought negotiations to curb Haruto's faction, which was gaining significant support from the people. Dosian had yet to make a move, but was determined not to give up, believing that strength was everything in this society and ready to continue fighting for that justice. Meanwhile, the scientist whom Suko had saved arrived at the robot's location for inspection. The teacher accompanying him was informed that he would be staying there and locked the door. Suddenly that day, Haruto's city lost power and snow began to fall. Many had to set out to fix the electricity. While the boys bravely descended deeper to repair the power, the girls began arguing about Soko's declaration of independence, which forced them into self-reliance. Accustomed to relying on others they couldn't handle. The slightest hardship, Haruto's friends thought it was shameful that they had rallied together, but now turned on each other. Words alone weren't enough, so the girls started to get physical. Soko suggested they sing to calm down, but no one paid attention. Haruto had to intervene, and fortunately, the boys managed to restore the power and ease the tension. They then decided to hold a music performance and broadcast it for all the people of Dior to see. Thanks to the music video featuring all the students, the citizens grew even more confident and supportive of them. Initially meant for their families and the people of Dior, the broadcast reached the entire world, and they even garnered support from the citizens of Asus. That day, Haruto and his friend Ruki went down into the city to check on a few things. Both discovered many robots like his down there, and Haruto knew that this would turn the pilot into an immortal monster like him, so he wanted Ruki to keep it a secret. However, their discovery was being watched by El, who found out Ruki gave Haruto a kiss before deciding to pilot one for herself. She stepped into the nearby robot, ignoring Haruto's warnings, who believed it was a curse. El recognized her as a perfect test subject to assess the risks of controlling the robot. Ruki successfully operated the robot and soared into the sky. Haruto chased after her, urging her to come back, but she believed there was nothing to fear. Now that she had achieved immortality, she had no decent family or relatives to rely on. Her friends were few, and Haruto was one of them, so she felt her existence didn't matter much. She then confessed something and hugged Haruto, only to reveal that she had been lying and bit him, to take over the body of the teacher and scientist, gaining a little brother, to teach and become an engineer. Ruki then used Haruto's body to flirt and play around. Seeing Yuki also compatible, he thought this school might be the perfect location for his plans. Meanwhile, aboard the Fedosian warship, they were preparing for another attack, but A was forbidden by the commander to participate in this mission. The next morning, when Haruto returned to his body, he heard the boys shouting about his ambiguous relationship with Yuki, who was also the idol of the boys. He took his phone to ask Ruki, and she said she wanted to become Haruto's rainy sister. This way she could ride on his fame, since he promised to help her, so he reluctantly accepted whatever she wanted to do. Soko rushed over to question him, but she still trusted Haruto, thinking that his account had been hacked and spreading false information. However, it was indeed the truth, and Haruto wanted to explain that they hadn't done anything, but his face gave away that he had done something, prompting Soko to raise her voice. Ruki then confessed her true intentions of wanting to be famous. She felt that if she didn't make a mark on the world, she would forever disappear. Suddenly, an emergency announcement rang out, warning that the Dojin army had surrounded them. Despite being alerted, they were completely unafraid, having already sealed off the route to Azulth, so if they won, they could take control without fear of repercussions. When they sent the robots into battle, they discovered there were two of them. They connected and found Yuki inside the other one. She had named her robot, but the AIs were surprised by the presence of more than one robot. She operated it much better than Haruto had before. The enemy was also taken aback by the independent city having another robot. Haruto quickly rushed to help, but L's former teammates were all elite and realized that both their robots were only capable of close combat, so they just needed to keep their distance to have a high chance of victory. Meanwhile, Figaro's ship was shot down, leaving the reinforcements from the students nearly non-existent. As for Ruki, after several flashy moves and boasting loudly about her immortality, she began to hesitate when victory seemed too difficult. Haruto had no choice but to charge in alone. The students watching the battle sighed at Yuki as she was becoming a burden for Haruto to carry. Soko called to encourage her as she was now on the stage with the entire audience, cheering for her. She regained her composure and felt that the audience wasn't enough. Wanting to broadcast it for the world to see, Haruto still wanted her to avoid danger, but she found a way to overcome this situation. She utilized the robot's capabilities to dodge the incoming missiles. Soko and the others cheered for her. Realizing that not only her friends, but the whole world was cheering for her, she knew she couldn't lose. She successfully approached the ship of the enemy Marked 10 and managed to take it down. The enemy Marked 10 escaped via an escape pod, and the commander ordered a retreat. In a city liberated from chaos, the student council finds themselves at a crossroads as they prepare to manage two robots. Haruto stands firm, refusing to let them take control. The AI has chosen him, and only he can truly understand its purpose. The teacher arrives to inspect the robots, leaving the student council president with no choice but to step back. Meanwhile, Haruto observes Zama fervently training and pushing his peers, all for a chance to pilot a robot. But to Haruto, this is a curse, a burden he refuses to let the AI bear. He fears losing control and doesn't want others to suffer the same fate. As the atmosphere thickens, the girls decide to head to the kitchen, hoping to lighten the mood. In the kitchen, Soko stirs a pot of vegetables that looks a bit too charred. Ruki is coerced into taking a bite, and to her surprise, it's not as bad as it looks, just a little unappetizing. Suddenly, L arrives, showing Ruki his plans for the city, plans that revolve around militarization and turning it into a training camp. She flatly refuses to negotiate. After this setback, L turns to threats. He activates an emergency lockdown, declaring himself the new leader of the city. With traps set around, Zama climbs in, knowing the dining hall is likely safe. Ruki brandishes a knife in defense, but facing L feels like a battle of one against an army. Meanwhile, Haruto is chatting with a junior, when L's voice echoes, calling him to the robot. As Haruto steps into the robot, L catches him, revealing that he had announced his intentions a full 15 minutes ago. L wants Haruto to follow his lead. Strong people need training. Then A arrives, ready to drag L away, offering him a chance to be his right-hand man. But L declines, preferring to command rather than be commanded. A is taken aback, realizing that even after shooting Haruto, he's still standing. L smirks, revealing that Haruto is his ally. Haruto, however, is resolute. He demands L free all the students. With tensions high, each of them points a gun at the others. Meanwhile, the teacher rushes to the kitchen to rescue everyone. Back in the chaos, a henchman has infiltrated the area, unleashing a small robot to rain bullets everywhere, targeting L mercilessly. As the situation escalates, Haruto is knocked unconscious. Ruki must take his place in battle, but the enemy has a countermeasure, an electric boomerang that traps her movements. Haruto regains consciousness, but his leg is pinned under a steel beam. Time is of the essence. Cutting him free now might be too late. L offers to take control of Haruto's body in the meantime. Haruto hesitates, knowing if he dies, L will too. Yet L is willing to gamble their lives, and Haruto springs into action, ready for battle. L hurriedly jots down crucial tactics for Haruto. He instructs Haruto to follow his lead. First, be wary of the boomerangs and target the enemy's gun. The arrogant enemy craves close combat, and Haruto seizes the moment, charging in and flanking them to blast the weapon apart. Witnessing this tactic, the others realize it mirrors L's strategy, leading to their retreat as their plans unravel. Inu, our determined friend, has discovered Haruto's body, and now he must hide it away. But just as relief washes over him, he learns that the junior girl who spoke with Haruto moments ago has lost her life. Overwhelmed with emotion, Haruto finds a photograph of a girl tucked away in L's pocket. Memories flood back and L's tears begin to flow, unveiling a poignant past. This girl was the first soul L encountered while desperately fleeing the Dosian prison. As soldiers closed in, the revelation struck: she was none other than the princess of Dosian. Quick-witted, L seized the moment, using her as leverage against the soldiers. But soon after, he awoke, bound and helpless. Glancing at the clock, L realized the city would face annihilation in just 6 hours, leaving Haruto with no time to waste in revealing the truth behind their pact. If Haruto accepted, L vowed to help save this place. The news of the girl's death rippled through the community, but Inu bore the heaviest heartache. Teachers stood helpless, unable to alleviate the students' grief, only cleaning up the blood-stained room where the robots were stored. Meanwhile, A reported back to his commander about his recent infiltration. He had discovered 5 unused robot prototypes still incomplete. The commander offered A one last chance to retrieve Io. If he failed, they would be disposed of. Meanwhile, among the students, Soko recalled the urgency to rescue the hacker girl, who had been captured by Io during the operation. With tears in her eyes, the hacker girl resigned to stay behind for a while longer. Inu and Zama both yearned to pilot the robots for battle. One sought vengeance, the other aimed to save lives and prevent further AI casualties. Just as Zama argued with the student council, President alarms blared Doshian was launching an assault. The 2 warriors rushed into battle while Haruto resolved to show no mercy to their foes. Yet 2 elite ships approached armed with powerful energy cannons, wise enough not to fall for the same trap twice. Meanwhile, A led another force through the very route he had previously infiltrated. Seizing a ship from the port, he began bombarding the city, declaring that every 10 minutes he would advance his attack by 100 meters. Bound and powerless, Io could only plot his next move in his mind. In the void of space, the enemy had no intention of finishing the job. They simply aimed to stall the 2 warriors outside for as long as possible. Inu, eager for revenge for his fallen comrade, found himself cornered by A's crew. The student council president rushed over, wanting to use Io as a bargaining chip, but Io emphatically refused. Soko dashed forward, urging Io to speak with Haruto. He expressed his unwavering faith in Io and asked for his help to save everyone. Convincing Io, he broke free from his bindings, vowing to save all without sacrificing a single AI. He pointed Haruto toward Ruki's robot, directing him to the precise coordinates. As he handled the situation, Io envisioned the battlefield ahead, guiding Haruto to angle his weapon just right to unleash its full power. The elite foes, believing Haruto to be delusional for firing at their own base, allowed him to shoot unimpeded. That shot pulled the tide back and shattered the boomerangs. The receding water left A's ship unable to continue its bombardment. Ruki charged in to confront Q while another enemy attacked Haruto, who had become momentarily vulnerable after unleashing his full firepower. Yet L swooped in, piloting a plane to buy Haruto some precious time. Haruto unleashed his energy sword technique once more, cleaving through the enemy fleet in one fell swoop. Meanwhile, Ao drifted aimlessly after his aircraft was shot down. Memories of the princess flooded his mind. She had once cut her hair and gifted it to Io, believing that a woman's hair symbolized her life, ready to share half of hers with him. Ultimately, Haruto rescued Io, a move he had anticipated. Knowing Haruto's gentle nature would compel him to save Io, the fallen girl was honored with an online memorial gathering over 75,000 tributes for her peace. Determined, Haruto resolved to trust Io at all costs, but the tension mounted, compelling Io to knock Haruto unconscious. The two robots then launched outside to push the city closer to the moon. In the days that followed, Io diligently trained the students, enhancing their skills to prepare for the enemy's assault, rather than waiting for the robots to shoulder the burden alone. Suddenly, an infiltration alert blared. They discovered Llama attempting to break in to pilot a robot. L found Llama's pursuit of vengeance. Laughable, captured. Llama learned that the robot could only be registered by one pilot. If the registered pilot proved inept, the robot would become scrap metal. Hearing this, Inu committed himself to training to avoid being deemed useless. Soko and Haruto, concerned secretly, observed Inu, who had transformed entirely since the departure of his comrade Soko, believed Haruto should speak with Inu. This was a matter for men to discuss among themselves. The alarm sounded again. Xian's forces were on the move. Thanks to L's development of a magnetic field shielding system, the city suffered minimal damage. He also created defensive firearms to retaliate. 2 warriors were dispatched, and the enemy immediately retreated to lure them. The 2 oblivious followed suit. Suddenly, another fleet launched a surprise attack on the city. L appeared to have no plans to save anyone. The escape from the palace was thwarted due to excessive energy use for the shields. Inu, desperate to act, spotted Llama sneaking in to steal a robot. Focused solely on his revenge, he disregarded the safety of others. Whatever happened to them did not concern him. This reckless mentality rattled Inu, prompting him to clash with Sama for the robot. Inu punched him aside and claimed the machine. L had predicted this, knowing Inu had the potential to pilot it. Though Inu was turning into Haruto, he embraced the determination within himself. He successfully piloted the robot, rushing out to shield Haruto with 2 energy shields, armed with long-range weaponry. Inu overcame the close combat disadvantage he faced alongside his friends. In the heat of battle, as Inu faced off against the elite enemies, Ten launched an unexpected attack from behind. At the same time, Zama commandeered the Ra robot to fight in tandem with Gamma's form. This allowed him to engage in both close and long-range combat. Gamma's massive arms could separate into 8 additional limbs plus 2 primary arms. With this, he could fire 10 shots simultaneously. The enemy fleet opted for heavy artillery bombardment, indifferent to the risk of hitting their own troops. L alerted Inu, who stepped forward to block the artillery, returning fire straight into the enemy's command room. One of the 3 ships succumbed, forcing the remaining 2 to retreat. Upon returning, everyone viewed Inu and Gamma through a new lens. L sentenced Gamma to a week of confinement for piloting without permission. Haruto rushed over to admonish L for allowing the 2 to take control, fully aware that L's actions had led to the power outage necessitating Inu and Zama's use of the robots. Yet Inu bore no resentment, for he longed to stand by Haruto's side. He confided that he once dared to confess his feelings to the younger girl, but she turned him away, asking him to keep his distance for now. Meanwhile, L discovered a scientist engrossed in experimenting with a robot prototype. Curiosity bubbled within him. How could a soldier like the Doctor find himself teaching in SAO? The Doctor revealed that every teacher and student at Dior existed to become pilots of these robots. Each one was being trained to become a soldier. He added that the Dior government had developed a weapon capable of taking on an entire fleet, a necessary defense against 2 superpowers looming on the horizon. Io found their advancements in weaponry rather impressive. The Doctor mentioned that Jun had orchestrated much of this, as Jun represented the information particles, the very essence from which all samples were derived. The doctor explained that the students at the academy were uniquely suited to wield such a weapon. Thus, all teachers were soldiers tasked solely with supervising and training a generation capable of piloting these machines. As for the AI resembling a girl, it was exclusive to just one robot, the one Haruto now commanded. The group of warriors gathered together, and Inu felt a surge of hope. They would no longer fight alone. Meanwhile, the teacher received a call from the ASUS government requesting a public debut for the citizens upon their arrival on the moon. Soko sought out her hacker friend to hang out and introduce her to some delightful treats. The four warriors decided to conduct experiments to see how their bodies had transformed since entering Seo, starting with testing how many times they could swap places. Zama concocted a daring idea and shared it with his two friends. Suddenly, the teacher called to inform them that once they reached the moon, the media would likely swarm them. She expressed her doubts about leading them all and suggested they elect a president together. The council president immediately stepped up as a candidate, drafting a myriad of reform plans. Yet Zama jumped into the race as well. Haruto found it odd that L chose to remain on the sidelines. He believed that as a refugee, he had no right to partake in the elections. The teacher also decided to enter the elections to test her own capabilities. The doctor believed she would do well and took his leave. Meanwhile, Haruto found himself in an elevator with the vice president, who reminisced about the day he had playfully flirted with her, feigning indifference, when in truth, she secretly enjoyed it. But suddenly Haruto was struck by a fit, and luck smiled upon him as Yuki rushed to his aid just in time. She deceived the vice president, claiming he was merely flustered by her beauty. Everyone concealed Haruto's condition to spare others unnecessary worry. He revealed that these episodes were becoming more frequent, and he feared they might become permanent. Ruki assured him that when that time came, she would take responsibility for his care. They then encountered Soko, who was not participating in the elections. She felt unworthy of trust, even though many were eager to support her candidacy for president. Meanwhile, the military led by Shin had one last chance to strike before the students reached the moon, and this time the commander himself would join the fray to avoid being ousted by his superiors. That afternoon, Haruto noticed Soko was missing. Her friend informed him that Soko had been acting strangely earlier that day, entrusting Haruto with the task of finding her. He rushed to the shrine only to discover that her father might have been assassinated and was currently missing. It dawned on him that Soko had known about her father's fate from the very beginning, and yet she's been fighting her battles in silence ever since. He felt foolish for not realizing it sooner and vowed to bring Soko's father back. She believed this was her father, so Haruto didn't need to risk his life, but he was determined to act. Seeing Soko's tears ignited a fire within him. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Soko decided to run for election, eager to fight alongside Haruto. She dashed back to participate in the election, her friend having already prepared her application. Just in time, she burst in to make her speech. Meanwhile, Haruto was struck by another episode, this time more severe than ever before. Just as Soko began her address, she proposed that when they reached the moon, they would hold a festival together. In these war-torn times, she urged everyone to savor every moment of their school life. The crowd rallied around her words, inspired by her promise to confess her feelings when the festival arrived. This created a wave of excitement as everyone awaited the much-anticipated event. Back to Haruto, he was in the throes of his episode and lashed out at Ruki. When he regained consciousness, he noticed Ruki looking dazed, and she informed him that Soko had won the election. Meanwhile, Soko's father was being brought to trial by Dosian's forces. That night, Soko texted her friend, planning to feast together under the moonlight. Since the moon was neutral territory, Dosian troops couldn't attack. All they needed to do was reach there and return to their old lives. The next morning, Haruto arranged to meet Yuki to apologize, but she laid out conditions making it difficult for him to speak. Zama continued his experiments, so the scientist could optimize the robot. Soko's friends had all become key figures in the government. Ruki and Haruto were among them, yet both chose not to attend the gathering. At that moment, they found themselves in a bar. and while Haruto tinkered with the cocktail machine, Ruki noticed Soko's call and quickly hid her phone. She didn't want Haruto to apologize. Realizing Soko didn't answer, she suspected the two were together. Soko received a congratulatory message from her friend. For the first time, she decided to respond verbally, instead of typing. Curious about who Soko was talking to, her friends learned it was a new acquaintance named Akira. The group leader recognized Akira as his younger sister and wanted to know how Soko had met her, urging her not to lead Akira into the outside world. Soko apologized, suggesting Akira should venture out more, but since childhood, Akira had been haunted by society, leading to severe anxiety. Just hearing about going outside sent Akira into a spiral. Soko wanted to check on her, and the group leader decided to join her. Meanwhile, the pair of warriors were enjoying a movie, with Ruki confessing she had always felt lonely, wishing to be chosen by just one person. Haruto seemed to understand her plight, assuring her she was no longer alone. Suddenly, an alert rang out, forcing everyone to shift into battle mode. The enemy planned to stall until their robots ran out of energy, then launch a full-scale attack. Io led the charge toward the moon, consolidating all defenses there. The warrior team was deployed to hold the line. Haruto called for help, but Io instructed him to hold steady, explaining that the enemy had committed all their forces to the chase. Their trajectory was nearly a straight line, meaning Haruto's ultimate technique would be effective if he timed it right. L then wrote out a plethora of potential scenarios and strategies, handing them over to the group leader for command. Meanwhile, he followed Soko as the Doxian army sought to speak with her. As soon as they connected, the enemy displayed her father, who had been sentenced to death. Io pinpointed her father's location right in the heart of enemy territory, and if Haruto unleashed his technique, both he and the Doxian army would be obliterated. Haruto began charging his energy. Soko tried to leverage the previous threats to intimidate them, but the enemy remained unfazed, claiming this was war and they would use any means necessary. They offered Soko a deal: surrender the robot and agree to be taken elsewhere, ensuring her father and friends would be safe. But what about the citizens of Dior who had put their faith in her? The weight of the world pressed heavily upon her shoulders, prompting her father to encourage her, expressing pride in her becoming president. Elle prepared a side plan in case things went awry. Her father advised her to look forward to the future, rather than dwell on the past, as he had no regrets seeing his daughter grow up. Haruto successfully charged his energy, unleashing a devastating attack that wiped out 3/4 of the enemy forces. Yet the elite troops devised another strategy, launching a drill straight from beneath the city. They infiltrated the robot hangar, drilling up to the surface. The scientist was injured while protecting the students. Haruto requested Ruki to take him back, while leaving Zama and Inu to handle things outside. The group leader faced an unexpected dilemma, unsure of what to do, as Elle hadn't accounted for this situation. The enemy commander, Ken, who had trained Elle, was well aware of his capabilities. Just as Ruki returned Haruto to the scene, he tasked Haruto with rescuing Soko, but he turned back to share something with her. He had planned to wait until the end, but now he decided to speak up and propose to her after the battle. Although she was overjoyed, she declined, believing he belonged with Soko. Haruto entered and called Elle. He urged Soko to stay strong, ensuring her father's death wouldn't be in vain. Elle arranged to meet Haruto to continue addressing this matter. Soko urged him not to tell Haruto about her father, knowing it would burden him with guilt. The drill was now just an hour away from breaking the surface. The air around the drill was becoming toxic, and Io couldn't stay still, aware that Ken was the mastermind behind this plan, and the only one whose moves he found hard to predict. The group leader contacted Soko, asking her to save her sister, as the drill would soon target the school where Akira was hiding. He explained that Akira had been bullied since childhood, which was why she feared the outside world so much. Hearing this, Soko insisted her brother not interfere. Elle then devised a plan to hide inside the robot's engine for a surprise attack. However, as they arrived, Ken was already waiting for them. Meanwhile, outside, the elite troops had devised their own strategy, using weapons heated to the point that the robots would overheat and become incapacitated. Ken managed to read Io's mind and decided to seize the robot for himself. Haruto lunged to confront him but was met with a barrage of devastating blows. Io charged in to attack, but he was no match for Ken's skill. One by one, all the robots outside were becoming overheated, rendering them useless. Ken was too formidable, so Haruto sacrificed himself to shield Io, allowing him to escape. He was the most crucial part of their mission. But Io was held back by A, who declared that once he captured Io, he would take one of his eyes while forcing F to witness the ensuing revolution. At that moment, Akira was doing everything she could to stop Soko from going outside, still unwilling to face the world. But Soko refused to give up. They were friends. Yet along the way, she was pierced by the drill, causing her to faint. Nearby, Akira struggled internally between her fears and her loyalty to friendship. After a tumultuous inner battle, she chose to uphold her promise to Soko above all else and rushed out. But the path had been blocked, revealing a nearby robot that had been activated. Embracing the risk, she climbed inside to pilot it, enabling her to rescue Soko. She strained to halt the drilling head, but it remained unyielding. In desperation, she drew her weapon, a staff capable of hacking anything. With a decisive strike against the drill, it was compromised and fell back. The combat robot that had rushed out to interfere fell victim to the hack, turning on its allies in a chaotic clash. She managed to help both Io and Haruto escape. They all rushed back to the ship where Io insisted on taking down Ken immediately. He was far too dangerous. Yet even after being hit by a barrage of bullets, Ken remained standing. He flew to a damaged robot inside and took the pilot's seat. Using a mysterious stone, he initiated the robot's self-repair. Tucci L realized he was no ordinary human. Only trained cadets could pilot such machines. The film leaves us with an open ending, hinting that Ken is part of a cosmic organization, manipulating events from the shadows. What will unfold next? What fate awaits in this escalating battle? We'll have to wait for Season 2 should it come to light.